Good morning, everyone. Today I will discuss why companies are going global. There are a lot of reasons why the companies are going global right at this moment of time. The first important thing is that the domestic market is basically saturated. I can quote Ratan Tata that he who is a person who first identified that after liberalization, India is not a safe place. There are a lot of competitors into the markets, so you need to go global because a lot of companies will come in India and take the pie out of that. So ultimately, you will lose the share of your products or services. That's why they are going globally. Today, after the acquisition of Tetle, today after the acquisition of Chorus, Nat Steel, they have a global presence all over the world. Similarly, I would say the pharmaceutical companies are also following the same path. Sun Pharmaceuticals, for an example, Dr. Reddy's lab, for an example, their sales, major sales are basically coming from overseas market. Similarly, if you think of Infosys or TCS, you will see that the majority of the sales are basically from overseas market. So, most important aspect is that if your domestic market is saturated, it is very difficult to sustain. That's why the companies are going global. Now, it may happen that your domestic market is very small in size. I can say I can say the example of this Hong Kong as well as Singapore, which is a very small market, which is basically a very small market, and because of that thing, they have to rely upon the overseas market. Unless until if you are do not emphasizing on overseas market, it becomes very difficult for them to sustain in the long run. As because after launching the product, your products may reach to the maturity stage or even go for a fast declining stage. So most important aspect is you have to think about your market size also. Hong Kong and Singapore, particularly, I would say, is a very small market. More your products are in mature stage, your profitability will much more. That is the example of Coca-Cola because they have a phenomenal presence all over the world. Almost 150 countries they are operating, and the product is in maturity stage in many of the countries, and because of that thing their profitability is much higher than the other competitors. Now important thing is that your domestic market growth rate may be very small. That is also very important aspect because your domestic market may be conservative, so it is very difficult for you to rely upon you single-handedly on your domestic market. So you have to go globally, or your suppliers are follow their customers internationally. It may happen in advertising agencies where the clients are there all over the world and they actually think of your products should be available in everywhere of the globe. Now competitive pressure is there, very important factor. Now a lot of competitions are there, so you have to think of that way. Suppose your production capabilities are there in China or in other places where the cost of production is very large, very small, I would say, or is much lower than the your domestic operation. So obviously you will opt for going globally because the cost of production is very less there. And maybe the company, I would say, companies are basically attracted by the offer of the government itself. When the governments of different nations are giving you this plethora of opportunities are there, so you'll opt for this kind of going globally. It may happen that your uh, attractive cost structure is important, growth rate and potential is very important. Say for an example, Latin American market or maybe say for a South African market is going really good. Particularly TCS, I would say, their growth is very good in Europe, North America, Latin America, as well as European, I mean to say African countries, as because they do not rely upon North American market. Particularly in 2007-8, we have witnessed the recession period, where you have to think of that thing that because of recession, the North American market as well as European markets growth rate was not so important. I mean, not so fabulous. So, what is important? You must go for a new places. We'll say, for an example, Latin America may be an option, maybe South African countries may be your options. So these are the important reasons. That's why companies are going global. So in internationally, your product will be your product will be accepted by so many customers. Your product will be available everywhere. Your reputation, growth, image will increase. At the same time, your government will earn lot many reputations, as well as you will get foreign currencies because of that thing. And you have the lot many options in your hand, because you may think of I mean to say recruiting new talents, newer opportunities. So these are important aspects which you will not get in your domestic market. That's why companies are basically going for global. Thanks.